They called them the tail choppers, elite pilots, seasoned in countless sorties, representing the proudest tradition of the Pakistan Air Force. Their final mission was as audacious as it was desperate, a suicide strike aimed directly at the teeth of India's S-400 air defense, a gambit notorious in both concept and execution. In the aftermath of Operation Sindoor, as strategic shockwaves reverberated across South Asia, the true contours of this mission came to light through official revelations, satellite evidence, and ground-level reporting. Began with mounting pressure in Islamabad. India's acquisition and deployment of S-400 Triumph batteries had tilted the balance of power along the border. The S-400 system is no ordinary network. It combines massive detection envelopes, ultra-long-range missiles, rapid digital targeting, and fluid mobility. Indian radar picket lines reached far inside Pakistani territory, tracking hundreds of airborne targets simultaneously and warning of any approach hours in advance. For Pakistan's planners, the question was simple. How do you strike an adversary protected by a dome of death that stretches hundreds of kilometers? The answer: sacrifice. The plan, authorized at the highest military levels, ordered 2 JF-17 Thunders from the tail chopper squadron to conduct a one-way penetration of the S-400's engagement ring. The rationale was brutally direct. These jets would draw fire, forcing India to commit interceptors and reveal the location of their batteries. Behind them, a follow-up wave of JF-17s would use the chaos to triangulate emission signatures, launching CM-400 AKG anti-radiation missiles in the hope of destroying or disabling India's prized air defense system. On the morning of the mission, the lead JF-17s roared into the sky, climbing through Pakistani airspace. In seconds, thousands of kilometers of integrated Indian sensors locked on. The S-400's 91N6E Big Bird radar tracked the jets before their landing gear had retracted. Fire control teams near Adampur and Pathankot computed engagement solutions, pristine, textbook perfect. Dozens of 48N6 and 40N6 missiles leapt from their tubes, crossing international lines not with aircraft, but as invisible, hypersonic guardians of virtual sovereignty. Tragically, the tail choppers never even reached the border. The S-400's engagement envelope, extending deep into Pakistan, became an impenetrable wall. The first JF-17s were obliterated over Pakistani soil, victims of proximity-fused warheads that detonated mid-air, scattering burning debris across fields distant from any Indian installation. The pilots, chosen for their experience and resolve, died without exchanging a single shot or seeing their enemy. But even as the first wave was destroyed, the second pressed forward. Trailing JF-17s, having witnessed the sudden disappearance of their companions, executed their part of the doctrine. They locked onto the last known emissions of the S-400 radars, snapshots of bursts, fleeting coordinates, and fired CM, AKG anti-radiation missiles, trusting that speed and surprise might outpace Indian defenses. Missile trails streaked over Punjab and Sindh, closing in on radar blips that moments earlier had targeted their squadron mates. Yet the Indian system was fluid, not fixed. S-400 crews executed shoot-and-scoot maneuvers, immediately shutting down and relocating their launchers and radars, sowing decoys and blanking emission signatures. As the CM-400 AKGs tore across the sky at supersonic speed, they found nothing but empty earth and decoy transmitters. Indian crews mapped the emissions and responded instantly. Using secondary radar tracks and offboard sensors, they assigned new interceptors to the JF-17s that had fired the missiles, ensuring that each signature, each hostile maneuver, drew a lethal answer. Within minutes, the trailing JF-17s dropped from the skies, shot down by S-400 interceptors before escaping Pakistani territory. Ground search teams recovered the shattered remains, noting that not one CM-400 had struck its mark. Instead, the audacity of Pakistan's doctrine had left only burn marks and grief on their own homeland. The full scope of the engagement stunned defense communities worldwide. The S-400 system's offensive air defense capability, projecting reach hundreds of kilometers over hostile territory without violating international law with manned aircraft, redefined the battle space. Pakistani jets, armed with standoff missiles, never got close enough to challenge India's batteries, and their electronic countermeasures proved powerless against the multi-layered, sensor-fused net of the S-400. In Islamabad, the cost became obvious. The tailed chopper squadron lost multiple aircraft and some of its finest men. The decision to bestow gallantry awards on the fallen pilots led to public mourning, patriotic tributes, and anguished policy debates. Were these losses necessary? Was there a flawed assessment of what could be achieved? Did desperation trump strategic prudence? Many candid interviews and closed-door inquiries revealed that planners had underestimated the speed and mobility of the S-400, treating theoretical maximums as exaggerated claims, only to see those claims realized in lethal, documented detail. Indian authorities, meanwhile, quietly celebrated. The engagement was used in briefings to highlight the reach, precision, and agility of their integrated air defense doctrine. Air Marshal debriefs described the event as clinical, no improvisation required, just a rapid sequence of detection, targeting, engagement, and relocation, flawlessly executed under real combat pressure. Military analysts published frame-by-frame breakdowns. Satellite imagery confirmed the S-400's shoot-and-move patterns, with radar emissions appearing then vanishing in minutes as launchers hopped locations. Pakistan's loss became a lesson in the impossibility of challenging modern, mobile air defenses with conventional air power alone. The emotional fallout was harsh. For Pakistani pilots, knowledge that takeoff itself risked destruction changed everything about their culture and tactics. Morale was shaken, training regimens shifted toward drone deployment, standoff weaponry, and electronic warfare that prioritized survival over heroics. The age of manned infiltration missions had ended before it began. For the families of the fallen, the narrative of martyrdom was overlaid with the reality of dying far from the battle lines, victims of a power that rewrote the rules of engagement. As officers realized that the only way to survive in the shadow of S-400 was to never present a target in the first place. Diplomatic channels grew tense then quiet. Both sides absorbed the lessons, recognizing that escalation would favor the side with layered, networked defenses and rapid repositioning. For now, the S-400 became as much a diplomatic asset as a battlefield weapon. The knowledge that retaliation would be annihilated before it began enforced a grudging stability, one dictated not by negotiations, but by the silent authority of orbital sensors and hypersonic interceptors. As weeks passed, details emerged. Airbase logs cross-referenced radio traffic, confirming the timing and sequencing of the shootdowns. Technical forensics analyzed surviving missile fragments and wreckage, piecing together a granular picture of the engagement. Interviews with Indian S-400 crews revealed pride tempered by professionalism. They had done their job, but recognized the human cost for adversaries that braved a hopeless mission. Historians catalogued the episode as a turning point, the elimination of parity in regional air combat. The tail chopper suicide mission became a cautionary tale. The lesson echoed loudly: audacity alone is not enough. Technology, mobility, and doctrine dictate the outcome, and the side that adapts fastest writes the final page. Tail chopper's legacy, it turns out, is not merely in courage but in consequence. Their sacrifice forced a hard reckoning in two air forces and set new rules for the shadow war over South Asia. In the post-mission silence, the S-400 batteries remain vigilant, while somewhere, families and former wingmen remember the men who flew into the unknown, knowing only that every second, every maneuver, every gamble is measured against an adversary that moves as fast as you think. Technology does not mourn, but memory does. The tailed chopper mission, from desperate hope to tragic reality, marks the start of a new era, one where every air operation must now account for deep reach, fluid defense, and the final authority of the missile commander's screen. The cost was high, the loss immense, the lesson inescapable. And as the region prepares for whatever comes next, the memory of the brave, the limits of old doctrine, and the supremacy of mobile defense are burned into the history of two nations.